Welcome to Talking Federal Business. I'm Nick Vlahovic, consultant to industry. Congratulations on winning your GSA schedule. Today is timely because this is part 2 in my 2-part series on my strategies on winning federal government business starting in year 1. You'll find part 1, which has strategies 1 through 5 in it, in my channel, Federal TV. Before I get going on strategies 6 through 10, and plus I have a bonus strategy for you as well if you stick around that long, I'd really like it if you could click like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks in advance for both. Strategy number 6 is called Prime Sub. Prime contractor, subcontractor. Prime sub relationships are typically thought of in construction of a building or when two companies want to get together in order to win business through a government socio-economic program. But there's other ways to make use of strategies through the prime sub model. Federal government agencies always use the path of least resistance to get things done, and that's not always the GSA schedule program. Often they want to bundle everything together and just go through one contractor, and they don't care who that is. So what you want to do is, once you've identified your target agencies, identify what companies have contracts with those agencies in whatever industry, and you want to market your products and services to those companies as a subcontractor potentially, so that your clients in those target agencies have the convenience of bundling everything they want through that prime contractor and getting to you that way in that model. It's a very clever strategy, and it's all about making things easy for the client. And it's a very common practice as well. Strategy number 7 is new business identification. If you rely just on responding to RFPs that come out of the eBuy portal, that's a recipe for failure. Because you can only compete on one dimension, price, and it ends up being a race to the bottom. Come up with a process to identify projects long before, years before the RFPs come out, and you will be ahead of your competition, 99% of your competition. You'll find in my channel a video I did on the 2 most important questions to ask on any government project. Without being the fox in the hen house, you'll be able to ask the right questions of the right people on every opportunity, and you will be ahead of 99% of your competition. Strategy number 8 is a best-in-class RFP response process. Federal agencies don't make RFPs easy to read through, and they don't give you much time, but the stakes are always extremely high. You want to understand what all the sub-processes are in the RFP response process. You want to assign the right kind and amount of resources to each of those sub-processes. You want to make sure they each have the right tools to work with. And then you want one person overseeing the entire process so they all work as a cohesive unit, so that each subsequent proposal response builds on the last one. So that ultimately it becomes a best-in-class proposal response team, and ultimately it will become a competitive differentiator for you that ultimately will become the backbone of your federal government business unit. Strategy number 9 is get contracts. Whether you call them blanket purchase agreements, IDIQs, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, or definitive contracts, or something else, contracts are tools by federal agencies in order to get their initiatives done and spend the funding that they have that support those initiatives. When you have your target accounts in place, you want to identify which kinds of contracts they have in place. You want to identify when they expire, and you want to identify who the stakeholders are for those contracts, and you want to get to them as early as possible to begin building relationships of trust with them. So when the time comes when they're doing their acquisition planning around the next contracts to replace the ones that they currently have, they're thinking about you favorably. Get contracts is strategy number 9. Strategy number 10 is hire a federal government business development manager to focus on all of your federal government business development efforts. To use a sports analogy, that person's role will be like general manager, head coach, quarterback, interior lineman, and wide receiver for the entire new business development program. You also want to make sure that they have the experience of federal government expertise under their belt as well. If you can find a person like that, even if you find somebody part-time on contract from the consulting industry, you will be well ahead of your competition for growing your federal government business. And now the bonus strategy. The bonus strategy is promote what you're doing to your federal clients and your federal influencers. That information alone will differentiate you from 99% of your competition. And once you really get it rolling, you'll be differentiated from 100% of your competition. And eventually, you'll be so successful with all of it that you'll be getting the best compliment you can ever get from a federal government client, and here it is. You know what you're doing. When you get that, I hope to hear from you, either in the comments section below or an email. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for joining. I'm Nick Vlahovic, Consultant to Industry.